We are live. Hello, everyone. It is time for another Monday Money Talks live. I'm so excited for today because this is really cool, actually. I met Skip through LinkedIn, and you all know that I love networking on LinkedIn, and I meet the coolest people there. And Skip spoke to my highest values because clearly he knew how much I love books. Copy of my book, and he sent it to me. And I got it in the mail. First of all, okay, check this out. Super fun cover. I love this cover. And then, we just had a nice conversation going, and I said, you need to come on my live and share with my audience and anyone who wants to come and talk about money making what your story is, because he has a very powerful story. So thank you so much for coming to the show today, Skip. I can't wait to have a deep dive with you.
Oh, thank you, Amanda. Yeah, major ditto.
Thank you. Yes. So there's so many fun directions we could go. Let's start first. I like to ask people what one of a quote that they live by. Like, what's a great quote that you live by?
Well, this is one I heard from one of my board members back when I was chairman and CEO, and he attributed it to Bill Gates, but I checked it out and I couldn't find that it was Bill Gates. But nonetheless, I love it. And the quote is, "What gets thoroughly planned, frequently measured, frequently reported, and appropriately rewarded gets done."
Ooh, okay, that's really juicy. Say it again.
Okay. What gets thoroughly planned, frequently measured, frequently reported, and appropriately rewarded gets done.
That's powerful. That pretty much hits all the high notes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For whatever you're doing in life, without a plan, you're just dreaming and wasting your time. You got to have a plan.
Yeah.
And then once you have the plan, of course, you have to frequently measure the metrics in the plan.
Yep.
Report them to yourself and others involved, and then appropriately reward your accomplishment of the plan.
Yes. I love this because many people, I notice they are missing one of these aspects, and it's why they struggle. So it's, they maybe are too much in the reward part, or they're in the over planning, but then they don't reward themselves. And I think that's something that I notice a lot of entrepreneurs doing, is that they work really, really hard a lot, and it's often too much. And they never really reward themselves because they set the measuring stick so high that they go, oh, I accomplished something. And then they just jump to the next level. Oh, I got to accomplish this next thing. They jump to the next level, and then they burn out. They feel frustrated. They feel like, to me, I think of it as almost creating your own prison out of your business instead of playfully enjoying it and rewarding yourself. So that's cool. I like that.
Well, especially for entrepreneurs, because they're always frequently trying to do something that no one else has done.
Yeah.
So the other key to creating a plan that you can implement is to create a plan consisting of a series of small, doable steps.
Yeah.
Because let's say you're standing at the top of a really steep ski run. If you look all the way from the top to the bottom, you're thinking to yourself, there's no way I can do that. However, if you think in a series of single steps, you can always make the first turn, and then you can make another turn, and pretty soon you've accomplished your goal.
Yeah.
Especially if you measure, report, and reward the accomplishment of each of those small doable steps.
Yes. Good stuff. I love this because I often will think about how I tell people a lot, one of my favorite quotes is by Rumi, as you take a step on the way appears. And it's very similar because it's like, if you're looking let's say you're looking from the bottom of the mountain or the bottom of the staircase, you might not be able to see the top, and you're not exactly sure where it's leading you, but you just take one step at a time, and then the way appears, and you take another step and the way appears. And you don't have to have it all figured out. I think people get really frozen with analysis paralysis, and they go, if I don't have every single part figured out, I'm not sure where to go, I'm not sure what to do. They don't take any action at all. And, a lot of us hear that part, imperfect action is better than no action at all. And exactly. The process is the perfecting part, right? So it's really, you and I are very of like mind. I love it.
Well, another quote that flows from that is, which one of my board members said to me that I live by this credo, is may be wrong, but never in doubt. So you're humble enough to understand that you might be wrong, but you have to operate in life with your pedal to the metal, never in doubt, until you collect some information that says, okay, well, maybe we better revise the plan. And
Yeah.
then we may be wrong on Rev 2, but never in doubt.
Yeah, that's very NFA attitude.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
I love your whole NFA credo. That's the only way to live right there.
Thank you. I agree. I do. It's funny because when I named my company that, a lot of people thought that knew me already. They're like, "Oh, that's so perfect," because I'm very NFA about everything I do. Like when I get into something, I deep dive into it all the way, like that 100% commitment piece. Even when I have no idea what I'm doing, but I have the inspiration to do it. It's like, hey, I'll figure it out. Of course, I love Marie Forleo's "Everything is figure outable." It's so true. Like really, if you're dedicated and you're committed and you take action in that direction, at some point you will understand why you took that action, and doors will open up to you that you didn't really understand were there before, is what I've experienced.
And the other thing about your NFA attitude is it implies that you will embrace mistakes, because mistakes are opportunities to learn and grow.
Totally. Yes. Let's go there, because I know you have had I was reading your bio and I was like, I can't fit all this in the explanation of our show today, but dang, that's powerful. So will you share your history? Tell us, so your book is called Mastering You from the Inside Out. So very clearly you're talking about inner work and in terms of mastering your outer world, which is my main philosophy behind my whole business. So give us the rundown of your history.
Oh boy. Born and raised in a small town in Western Pennsylvania, about 5,000 people. Nobody locked their doors, nobody locked their houses, etc. Raised by an old lady I called grandma, but wasn't my grandma, was my mother's best friend's mother. And I was raised by her because I had two older siblings, and my parents married each other and got divorced from each other 3 times.
Wow.
So
wild.
After they had each child, they decided, oh no, well, we don't really like each other. So they get divorced, but then they can't live with each other without each other. So they get remarried. And then they have another child. So I was the third and final straw, I guess.
Wow.
So, I grew up playing sports. Sports are really important to me. I like the metaphor for life, which I came to understand later in life, of course. And then I was the first person from my small town to go to an Ivy League school. Went to Dartmouth because they had great food. How's that for decisive? Went to Dartmouth, did well academically, was all Ivy football and javelin. Came out of Dartmouth, was supposed to go to work for the CIA. I was hired by the CIA, but then they canceled my contract when Jimmy Carter won the election. And, he didn't like all that CIA types, which was actually good because I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today had I done that.
Yeah, very different life trajectory for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And then from there, because I'd established residency working construction in Illinois, went to University of Illinois for my MBA, went to the liberal arts world of business, which was working at a commercial lending at a bank. Then went to their venture capital group, which really set the trajectory for the rest of my life. Moved from there, built a $750 million venture capital fund with 3 other partners, and then became the chairman and CEO of Cyberonics, one of our portfolio companies, which was basically, when I agreed to do it, it was essentially bankrupt because FDA had turned down the company's first application for their revolutionary new device-based therapy for the treatment of medically refractory epilepsy. So did that. And then we got epilepsy approval. We then noticed that it worked as well, if not better, in treatment-resistant depression. So we started doing studies in depression, and that's sort of where all hell broke loose, because the epilepsy market means nothing in terms of status quo for big pharma, et cetera. But the antidepressant world is really the core of every major pharmaceutical company. So we eventually got FDA approval after a huge fight, but then apparently I threatened a lot of people's status quos. So completely false options, backdating allegations appeared in my life, and that was pretty much it at Cyberonics. Everything I worked my entire life for, net worth, reputation, career, et cetera, was taken away from me based on completely false options.
Wow.
Yeah. And, I came.
How old were you at that point?
Oh, let's see. I was 55.
Okay. So a huge juncture or a pivotal moment in your life, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I'd taken the market cap of Cyberonics when I became CEO was 25 million. It was headed for the pink sheets. And then over the next 11 years, I built the market cap to $1.5 billion.
Wow. Compound
annual rate of return, regardless of whether or not you looked at the 52-week high or 52-week low, was some 36%, which is pretty extraordinary. And compound annual growth rate in sales was over 50%.
Wow.
And you see everything we were doing, Amanda, was unprecedented. Nobody had ever tried to pioneer a vagus nerve stimulator, so we had to pioneer entirely new science. And nobody had ever pioneered a business model to sell a device-based therapy to 6 different customer constituencies that had no experience with devices, only drugs before. Right. So it was a huge undertaking. And, we commercialized completely new technology. We built 2 markets. We ended up getting lifetime achievement awards for making quality of life matter in epilepsy. But, as I say in my book, you better pick your battles carefully, especially with the powers that be.
Yeah.
And I'm living proof of it. So
I'm so curious because I always think about things from like an energy and systems dynamic approach, where when we have these big cataclysmic life altering shifts, there was something out of balance. And, you're in a system and a program and working with a group of people. So it's not necessarily just you, but I'm curious for you, as you had built the company up to that level, were you enjoying it? Were you overly stressed? Was it a good thing I know it is in the end because of the way that you think about the world, but at the time, did you feel like, I want to know how you felt at the time. So curious.
Well, it was true pioneering. We didn't have any precedent. And of course we were a publicly traded company. So every word that I would say would create expectations. Mm-hmm. How to deliver on your promises and be a hero is one of the chapters in the book.
Yeah.
So you're constantly creating expectations that you have really no basis upon which to create those expectations. And you're not doing it intentionally, you're doing it inadvertently. Because every word you say, oh, that's an expectation, regardless of the expectation. Yeah. So, but for me, given my origin programming, another chapter in the book, to show the bastards and win, rely on me, myself, and I, etc. I loved it. I was totally energized all the time. And I can remember walking out of the parking lot, walking to my car at 8 or 9 o'clock at night on the darkest days when we were fighting with FDA or Wall Street was all over us. And I thought to myself, sure beats being bored.
Yeah. I don't think that most entrepreneurs enjoy boredom.
No, but
right.
the mistake that I made that every entrepreneur needs to be sensitive to is you need a wealth creation plan as one of your plans.
Yes.
So just because you have stock that's worth 100 million, it's not worth 100 million until you sell it and cash out.
Yeah.
So it's all about monetizing your assets. So, but I loved it.
Yeah.
There was,
I want to hear, when you say the monetizing assets part, give some examples of what that would be for people who are watching or listening.
Stock you own in companies. If you gamble, you sit there and you look at, I have all these chips in front of me. Well, guess what? That isn't profit. That isn't profit. Go to the cashiers when you cash in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or any investment of any type, because unfortunately, most of us, and I was also one of those, even though I considered myself a financial planning and budgeting expert in business. And then there's the personal side. That's the challenge. I mean, we live in a consumptive society, as you know, Amanda. Yeah. So we get bombarded from the outside world to define ourselves as consumers. No, be a wealth accumulator first. Accumulate your wealth, and when you get to that level of wealth that you're trying to accumulate, then you can start spending.
Yes. Yes. Or even I notice a lot of people working toward wealth accumulation and thinking once they get to a certain point, then they'll be happy. And it's that whole process along the way. And you never know when it's going to be taken away from you, or you're going to have some big life event that changes everything. So it's like, if you're not enjoying the process along the way, what's the point of it at all? I think, and
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
But it's funny, every job I found, in the happiness formula, which my book inspired me to create my own happiness formula. Nice. Too bad I didn't do it, 30 years ago, but
well. Yeah. Well, now you're there.
But if you properly define long-term financial security in your happiness formula, and you set a goal to work to that, then when you get to that, it's not like you say, okay, I have it, I'm going to quit or whatever. But you have to recognize, as you just said, opportunities of a lifetime for wealth accumulation don't come around very often. And when they do, they disappear fast. So you got to take advantage of it when those opportunities present themselves.
What do you think are the greatest opportunities right now for wealth accumulation?
If I knew that, I'd be doing a lot better than I am. I would say, the stock market. I look at the stock market. Everything's worth billions of dollars. I mean, and you can't look at PEs or traditional thinking. The one area that continues to boom that I wish I'd taken advantage of when I had the opportunities, huge opportunities to do it, is vacation rentals or rental properties.
Yeah.
Because it generates an alternative source of income.
Yeah.
And if you get those properties in the right place, they're always going to be rented.
Yeah. 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 Even in economic downturns. It's interesting because I always think about how to create multiple passive streams of income. And, I go like, of course, real estate is way up there. Stocks. I invest in crypto, and I'm learning everything I can about blockchain for the future of that industry. And it's just an interesting thing to be thinking. Everything I do, I'm like, is this going to create a long-term passive stream of income? Because it's so much easier to build your wealth when your money's making money for you. And
exactly.
I never knew this as a child. I wasn't taught. My parents didn't teach me about stocks. They didn't invest in stocks, so it's like when I started investing, I was on food stamps, and I started just doing $20 a week on my own, and I started learning everything I could, and I just kept learning and growing. And I was like, oh my God, it's so cool to have your money making money for you.
Exactly.
Like amazing. And it was game changing. And very quickly, I shifted my thinking around money and went off of food stamps. And then I've never taken money out of my savings. I've only invested more and more and more and more. And it just keeps growing. And then I'm like, cool, this passive stream of income is paying for this. And this passive stream of income, and it's just fun. It's like a fun game when you can think of it that way. But I always loved if you ask people like you who are clearly powerful wealth generators, because you've had ups and downs in the process, but you've been able to, come back from those mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is to have a plan, especially if you're in a relationship with someone, have your wealth accumulation plan.
Yeah.
And that invariably forces you to have a consumption plan. Because you can't accumulate wealth if it's all about consumption. And I can tell you that in general, there are three things in which you never make money. Okay. Yeah. It's not wealth accumulation. Buying bigger houses that you don't need to live in. Okay. Secondly is buying more and more expensive cars. And thirdly is buying bigger boats. And because that's I started I was auto racing professionally as a hobby because it was a great way for me to sort of escape my reality and totally focus. But there's an old adage, how you make a small fortune in racing?
How?
Start with a big one.
Just start with a huge fortune and make So it shifts down to a small fortune.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. I haven't heard that one. I'm not in racing world. That's a good one. So, okay. Something you said though, I think is really important for people to focus on, because you talked about if you're in a couplehood to make sure you have a wealth creation plan. It's funny because I interviewed for my podcast. I used to do interviews for my podcast, and there was a guy on who was like a big wealth generator, and he talked about the number one way to lose wealth. And I was so like on the edge of my seat. He's like, divorce. It's like, interesting. When we think about relationship status and how much more powerful you are as a couple in making money, and then how much is at risk when you don't have a powerful relationship, because you're going to lose a lot of wealth accumulation in the divorce process potentially. And so I thought that was fascinating for him to say that. And it makes me think a lot how we don't tie being a well-rounded individual. In your book, Mastering You from the Inside Out, I think about all of the ways we master ourselves and how then our outer world matches. And it goes like healthy relationships, health in your bank account, health in your body, health in your mind. Like when you're balanced out in all those ways, you have wealth accumulation.
Exactly. Yeah. And wealth just isn't financial wealth.
Right.
I mean, there's all kinds of wealth.
Yeah.
And all sorts of happiness, just like there's all sorts of different types of energies.
Totally.
But, I talk a lot about relationships because my book is, personally and professionally. Everything I know now that I wish I knew 30 years ago, that I do know now. And I don't think people do relationship agreements.
No, not at all. Yeah.
So they don't use their experience with prior relationships.
Yeah.
And then sit down with their current relationship and say, okay, wait a minute. We need to define what is a committed monogamous relationship.
Yeah. Or if that's what you want, right? Like what are the agreements? Like, how does our relationship look?
Yeah. What are everything, and put it in writing, because anything that isn't in writing is subject to memory. And we all have pretty significant memory lapses, but okay. Who's paying for what?
Yeah. And what are our long-term goals? I mean, I like the word wealth accumulation, because you go like, if you don't focus on long-term wealth accumulation, it's unlikely that it will happen.
If you don't have a plan.
Yeah.
It's just a pipe dream, right?
So great. Yes, absolutely.
And the whole idea of, the trap that I was caught in, and I'm sure everybody is caught in, is you keep looking at houses and cars. Why do people need a new car every 3 years? Unless you're leasing. Why? You don't. I mean, the cars built today are built to last. So why don't people just keep driving them? Yeah. Oh no, I need a new car. No, you don't. Your existing car gets you from point A to point B just fine. Yeah. So take that money you'd spend on a new car and put it somewhere else. Put it in an income earning asset.
Totally.
And that way you also have diversified your income sources, so that if something happens to your day job, like mine was totally taken away, then you have income.
Yeah. I so appreciate conversations, because really the only way that you can build your wealth faster is either by spending less or making more. I mean, you can invest more and save more and all those things, but it's either let's say your money stays stable. The only way you're going to make more is by spending less, so that you can put more money into savings and investing. And I know it can be done, because I was dead broke and only made $1,600 a month. And I just started, I was like, okay, I know it seems counterintuitive because I'm on food stamps, but I was like, I'll just eat rice and beans an extra day and put $20 into the savings and investing. But the cool thing is that it signaled to the universe, I'm serious about building my wealth. And very quickly, I was able to shift my reality and start to build my wealth, and opportunities started flowing my way and things started shifting, because I changed my mindset around what money making means, and that it's possible for anybody to get wealthy. I love those stories about people who are like, working on very low incomes and then make millions over the years, because compounding interest is so powerful. Oh, yeah. And, I was like, that is the coolest thing ever. So anyone can do these things. Anybody can be wildly wealthy if they put their mind to it, I believe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all about having that realistic plan, series of small steps.
Yeah.
Every time you accomplish a step, give yourself a little reward, but stick with the plan. Yeah. And, I, despite the fact I grew up with absolutely nothing, and I remember I made my first $1 million in a year when I was like 30 years old. Well, I never conceived of that kind of money when I was a kid. I mean, I don't think my father, who was a U.S. steelworker, ever made more than about $4,000 a year. Of course, everything was less expensive then.
Yeah.
But still, so I go through life And then I get an MBA, and then I start sitting on boards, running companies, and I'm an expert financial planner, overall business planner, and budgeter, and monitoring of budget and revising the plan. But what am I doing in my personal life?
Yeah. Yes.
And why not? Why not say to yourself, and I sort of had a plan where I said, okay, when I get 20 million in municipal bonds that could generate, $1 million a year, tax free. If I can't live on that, I'm a complete moron. But did I write it down? Did I have the steps that I needed to do to get there? No.
It's so much about the plan and intentionality. When you write a plan, it creates intention and clear focus and dedication and commitment. I mean, to me, I have these boards in front of me in my office, and I always write down, like, what's my weekly plan, because all kinds of things can come in if you don't create the weekly plan. And then I have my one boards for the week and one boards for the quarter. And I just go and it's a fun manifestation thing, but it also gets you into action in that direction. I mean, okay, I could pick your brain all day. You and I could talk for hours. I am certain of it, because there's so many cool conversations. I'm curious if you could share with people, what would you say your number one money block is that you had to get over in order to get where you are today?
Number one money block. I would say this. A failure to acknowledge that number one on my happiness formula was long-term financial security.
Okay.
Because that has a lot of implications. So if I know that's number one on my happiness formula, long-term financial security, that forces me to have a long-term wealth accumulation plan.
Yeah.
That forces me to buy income producing assets outside of my day job, as it were.
Yeah.
Et cetera. And it forces me to monitor that relative to my lifestyle. By implication, that also forces me to restrict consumption, because what is long-term financial security? That's having the income to support the lifestyle that you're comfortable with.
Yeah. Pat, that's awesome. Very, very powerful. And I think that most people do not plan in that way. They're not thinking, I mean, we're very short-sighted creatures, right? Where it's like pleasure pain principle is how our brain is run. So we want to be in pleasure in the moment and enjoy everything we possibly can and avoid pain. So long-term thinking is kind of, you could look at it as painful depending on how you frame it. But, it's like why most people don't plan in those ways. I think it's why most people, tying back to the relationship piece, they don't plan for the problems that might come up in a relationship. So they don't premeditatively deal with the relationship agreements, right? And the same thing with your money. And it's the same thing with building a business. And so, it's like, if you want to only be happy in the moment and you only want to have pleasure in the moment, you're not thinking long-term, you're never going to plan. You're not going to measure. You're not going to, it's like, you're not going to report and you're not going to reward yourself because you're already rewarding yourself too much in the moment.
And then the opposite of the reward is there are consequences.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I didn't achieve this aspect of the plan. Why not? Well, I bought a new car instead. What are the consequences for that? And especially if you're in a relationship where two people have agreed, here's the way we're going to roll financially, and every other way. Okay, if somebody breaks the agreement, there's got to be some consequences.
Then what? Yeah, totally. Well, and if you don't premeditate what the consequences are, there are always consequences to your decisions, right?
Exactly.
So there will be consequences. So I like to think about positive consequences of being consciously decisive. So it's like the positive consequences that you planned your future and you get the outcome you want, instead of unconsciously attracting all the things you don't want and then just continuing to replicate that. And it's almost like a cycle. It's like I call it a shit storm. It's like, it just keeps coming and coming. You feel like you're always at the bottom and you can't get out of it because you never stop to go, wait a second, how am I creating this? And it's through a lack of planning. It's a lack of intention.
And a lot of people go for that instant gratification.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay.
Most people.
And they don't think about the consequences of what they just did. So,
Totally.
and again, I've seen lots of people, oh, we need this bigger house. Well, no, you should have an agreement with your relationship partner that says, okay, what size of square footage of house and price of house are we going to say we can afford, and based on what over the coming years? Because, you know, people get successful. Oh, let's buy a 6,000 square foot house for a family of 4. Excuse me? I mean, really?
Yeah.
Do you really need that? And then you say to yourself, okay, well, I could get 3,000 or I could get 6,000 and the difference is $1 million. Well, think about what you could do with that $1 million.
Yeah. You don't know this because I didn't share this with you, but it's so funny right now. So when I told you I'm moving to Colorado Springs, I'm moving in with my partner his house is almost paid for by renters. And then I rent my house right now. So I'm dropping my rent. We're living in his house, which it's smaller than ideal. You know, it's only 1 bathroom at the moment. So it's like, we're like, okay, could we do this? How will this be comfortable? We're like, yeah, we can build so much wealth. Like, think of all that money we can invest and do,
exactly.
You know? And so it's like, I'm noticing the more that I focus my thoughts on investing and long-term passive development of income, I have a harder time spending money on anything. I'm like, I could buy a $50 shirt, or I could invest that $50, and that $50 could grow into $5,000, or, you know, over time. And it's like, do I need the shirt? And so it's like oddly frugal, but in ways where my whole intention is, like you were saying, like in your happiness formula, thinking about long-term financial planning, it's like, where could that money go? And so when you get that wealth building mindset, everything shifts in a totally different way.
You're exactly right. You know, you go to shop for clothes or whatever. You say, you know what? Do I really need these three tops? No,
yeah, totally.
No, 2 will be fine. So, and one of the ways that I've made myself very happy is when I do something and I go and buy something. My history was I always bought 2 of everything. Why? I don't know, but that's the way I operated. So now I will be checking out and I'll see, do you really need this? Do you really want that? No, I don't. So I'd go and I go and put it back, and that makes me feel really good because again, I'm consciously living my happiness formula.
Yeah. Yeah, which it's funny because, you know, I'm really into wealth building, and I'm also a manifester. So it's like sometimes those things, I think people the self-reflection part is so important, because if you feel restricted and confined by not treating yourself, because it's kind of part of that reward thing, right? Like, I work for my money. I love what I do. I attract money my way. And because I'm so interested in wealth building, I will often offset like the pleasure in the moment. But then from the manifestation perspective, sometimes it's like have fun and enjoy things, you know? So there's that thought there that it's like, I think it's important to ask yourself, is this bringing me joy? Is this thing I'm going to buy bringing me long-term joy? Is it creating freedom, or is it creating like imprisonation through?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly right.
Because something could feel really good in the moment, but if it's going to cause you long-term stress and then you have to work your ass off all the time to pay for it, that's not going to end up bringing you joy. And then you're not as magnetic with your money.
Yep.
So it's important things to be thinking about. Oh, it's such a fun conversation.
Well, and you know, the relationship thing, and I have a chapter in my book called How to Win When Shit Happens. And I use shit happening is an existential term that basically says unpredictable things will invariably happen in life.
Yes. Right? Yes.
But when you think about the causes for breakups or divorces, cheating, you know, no more sex is boring.
Yeah.
Money arguments, kids arguments, you know.
You nailed them.
career obsession, all those things. When if somebody ends up in a divorce based on one of those things, somebody says to them, well, what happened? Oh, you know, shit happens. No, that's false. The problem is they had no plan to deal with the predictable things that destroy relationships. Totally. So, and money is a big part of that. So if you don't have a money plan with your relationship partner, you are heading for a crash into the wall on the racetrack of marriage or relationships, because you don't have a plan to deal with the predictable stuff.
Totally.
Everybody knows.
And most of it is, right?
Yeah.
It's almost entirely predictable.
Right. It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And write it down.
You're so speaking my language, because it's like I have people do individual money stories. And then when I work with couples, I have them do a couple money story. And it's so powerful, because that your belief system about money is going to come into your relationship, and it creates how you spend, how you save, how you invest, how you spend your time, how you believe about working, all those things. And it's so important, because it's one of the number one fights that couples have. And, you know, it's like very important. And it's completely preventable to learn how to have those conversations and make those agreements and go like, let's build our wealth together, and let's get on the same page about how we're going to spend and save and earn and all of that, you know. And then if you're having kids, like say you're a newer family and you haven't even had kids yet, you definitely want to be talking about it, because the number of kids you have affects your wealth big time.
And
you know?
kids are expensive.
They are. I feel fortunate that I had my kids so young, because I think what I know now about money, I'd be like, kids are expensive. Like, how many kids do I have? 3 amazing angels, you know, now, and I have a stepson now, and it's like 4 kids is a lot, you know, like that's a lot of kids to pay for. And luckily my kids, in some ways it's funny, because I had such a challenged money background. My daughter went to college when I was still getting my PhD. So I was like, I hope you get some good scholarships, because there's no way I can pay for you to go to school. So it's been interesting in those ways. It's funny, I put on here that we're going 30 minutes and we're at 36. So I want to ask you, what would you say? I always like to give listeners or watchers actionable tips. What would you say is your fastest money-making strategy in your business, or like in your life? What's the fastest money-making strategy you could share?
The fastest money-making strategy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say I'm going to take it all the way up to the highest level possible. Figure out your happiness formula from the inside out.
Okay.
And then do what makes you happy.
Okay.
And you'll make money.
Yeah, I so agree with you. What is the happiness formula? Will you clarify what that is?
Where you basically go through your life and analyze what makes you happy, truly happy, long-term happy, why it makes you happy, why that makes you happy, and then what you typically do to create that happiness.
Okay, and then just repeat and amplify.
Exactly. Because then once you figure out the answers to those 3 questions, and in the book, I have a chapter, you know, your happiness formula, where it has exercises to do just that.
Awesome.
But, you know, once you figure out what really makes you happy and why it makes you happy, now you can create happiness from the inside out. And
awesome.
And if you're happy, you will make money, because you'll figure out a way to do it.
Yeah.
But it all stems from mastering you, of course, from the inside out, to survive and thrive personally and professionally. Number 1 in the sequence of the chapters is overcome your origin challenge, which is all that programming that was done to you by your parents, you know, your teachers, your siblings, your coaches, etc., during your first 18 years of life. That is really powerful programming. Mm-hmm. So you have to understand and own that, revise it as necessary to incorporate your, you know, experience as an adult. But then the next step is figure out what truly makes you happy. A lot of things might make you happy in the short term, but you think about, okay, did that really make me happy over the years? No, not really. Adjust your happiness formula, figure out what makes you happy, why it makes you happy, and how to create that happiness, and life will be good.
I knew you and I were aligned, but I had no idea how aligned we are. It's funny, because that's exactly the manifestation formula, right? Like when I talk to people about manifesting, it's like, first thing is do what brings you joy, and do more of that every day. And then you start to amplify your joy. And joy is a very powerful, a very high frequency. So you actually vibrate at a higher frequency level, which then attracts things your way more easily, because you're happy. And then you want other people around you want to be in support of you and want to be around you, because you are uplifting the whole situation. So it's fascinating how I think I like the happiness formula concept because that's what everybody's striving for, right? Like, why do you want money? You want to be happy and fulfilled. Why do you want a good relationship? You want to be happy and fulfilled. It's like, why do you want a job you love or a career you love or a business you love? You want to be happy and fulfilled. So it's like the ultimate outcome I think that we're all looking for is joy and fulfillment and
Exactly.
and happiness,
And right now, the array of powerful outside forces, the unprecedented array of powerful outside forces that every single second of every single day are trying to tell us who and what we are and trying to master us from the outside in, including telling us what our happiness formula is, needs to be blocked out. And people need to go deep inside themselves, especially what we've all been through, the trauma we've all been through and continue to endure, and figure out who and what you are from the inside out. And then get after it. NFA.
Absolutely. Oh, it's been so fun talking to you, Skip. Like, really, really enjoyed it. Tell people, obviously, everyone needs to go buy Skip's book, Mastering You from the Inside Out. And I haven't read it back to back, cover to cover, but every time I open a page, I'm like, damn, that's good information. And your story is so powerful, and you really interweave. I think people can tell who have watched this, you interweave really good tips throughout and help people with that map. So Happiness Formula, get the book. Where else? Ooh, there we go. Where else would you like them to find you? I know that we have, let's see, I've got that your website is right there. Are there other ways that they can connect with you?
Yeah, the website is the best way to do it. And I just released, although we're having some technical difficulties with it, I just released my first online video course through Udemy.
Ooh, nice.
Which, just like Mastering You, starts with how to master your origin challenge. And it's an online video series of classes, has great worksheets that force people to put down in writing their answers to the questions. But I also include my worksheets because one of the things I'm a big believer in is effective communication comes with common language, common vocabulary, and common experience. So I give the worksheets I completed to share my experience so the communication is better. But it's
great. Say the name of it again.
It's called How to Master Your Origin Challenge.
Okay. Awesome. Wonderful.
And it's
How
on
to
Udemy.
master your origin challenge.
There's some technical stuff. Hopefully we're going to get it ironed out, but I've got like 35 5-star reviews.
Nice.
From parents, from people in relationships, from entrepreneurs, etc. Because the whole idea is you got to understand and own that origin programming.
Yeah.
So you can appropriately revise it to reflect all your experiences as an adult.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. My favorite quote is, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. It's by Carl Jung. And it's exactly that. Like, if you don't understand what those unconscious downloads were that you got growing up throughout your life, they will run your life forever. And you'll think like, oh, this is just how it is, but it's absolutely not. So they need to take your course. That's awesome. Yep. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you everyone who plugged in. For some reason I get comments on LinkedIn, but I can't see them. So if you did leave a comment, I will answer it later. Thanks for being here. And Skip, you and I will stay in touch. It's been great to have you on. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
Yes. All right.
NFA all the way.
Yes, I agree. All right, everyone. I will be back next week at noon to bring you more money-making tips. Until then, NFA money-making high five. See you next week.